I think if bees could talk, there are two things that they would ask us to do. And one is to have more flowering hedgerows. And the other is to have more meadows that we let bloom. And really it's true to say that these meadows that bloom are fantastic sources of food for pollinators and probably the most cost-effective way that you can help. I do think that as humans we have to manage our own expectations a wee bit, and sometimes we think of a wildflower meadow and we picture, a riot of colour, and it looks lovely, but that's not what bees need. Bees need meadows that have lots of pollen and nectar rich plants that provide food for them. So I suppose it's more the hay meadows of old that we're trying to recreate, rather maybe than the front of a wildflower seed packet. And it's simple things in meadows that provide that pollen and nectar. It's clovers, bird's foot-trefoil, knapweed. Those really simple plants we just need to allow to grow. So there are two types of meadows that you can create. One is a short flowering meadow. That's really just reduce your mowing. So you're mowing maybe every 4 or 6 weeks instead of really regularly. And what that does, it just lets things like clover, dandelion grow and provide food for pollinators. The other option then is to have a long flowering meadow, and that's where you just cut once a year in September and you remove the cut away again.
Well, the Don't Mow, Let It Grow project now has been running, I think, for about 4 or 5 years. We did a partnership with DFI Roads and the council, and we now have about 11 hectares of council park being managed as hay meadow and 19 road verges that are being managed as hay meadows. So we've got a huge network through the Causeway Coast and Glens Borough Council. There's also a network of about 40 volunteers now as well that help do surveys, do litter picks, raise awareness and participate in events, and even down to there's a bunch of us that will go out and size some of the smaller meadows, which is also a great way of kind of finding out what you've got, and a very sensitive way of managing the grassland. We're sitting in this beautiful hay meadow, and 5 years ago this was a silage field, and the only thing that has changed was these little beauties were sown into it. So this is yellow rattle, also known as the haymaker, and it actually feeds off the more vigorous grasses. So when the decision was made to turn this field into a hay meadow rather than silage, this was sown 5 years ago after the grass was lifted, late summer, and then the only management that has changed since then is that now it just gets cut and lifted once a year, and the crop is taken away, and the cattle love it because, as you can see, there's a huge diversity of sward here, so it's like a healthy diet for the cows.
I am involved in the management of this site, and I'm also a volunteer for the Don't Mow, Let It Grow project. In this meadow at the moment, you can see there's a really good diversity of wildflowers. We've got the oxeye daisy here, which is sort of scattered through the area. We also have a really lovely red clover here, and some white clover. We have common spotted orchids, and whenever you get wild orchids starting to come into a grassland like this, it means the site's really recovering because they need specific fungi in the soil. We've got meadow buttercup. We have some of these lovely grasses here, very fine grasses. This is crested dog's tail, and we've got a little bit still of Yorkshire fog as well. Some of these finer grasses are food plants for different butterflies, like the small heath. This is really good because it's catering for not just the adult pollinators by providing loads of nectar for bees and butterflies, but it's also starting to cater for the larval stages as well. So one of the things that I guess some of the wildflower seed mixes you might get in packets, they tend to be annuals, and those can provide lots of nectar, but you still have to manage it quite intensively, and you don't get that support for the early stages of the pollinators, whereas this kind of meadow is starting to achieve this, and it'll increasingly do that as we continue with this management and more kinds of wildflowers come in.
I am actually the biodiversity officer within the council, and sitting here in a meadow like this just makes my heart sing. I also knew that I had to engage with the local community and the wider people and users and visitors to the area to show the politicians and the decision makers, the councillors, the directors, that the choice of creating these meadows and managing our land this way was beneficial to the community and our visitors, as well as the biodiversity. So a huge focus of the project had to be on educating and explaining to people that this was an active management choice and the reasons why we were doing it. And by doing things like a public perception survey every year, at the end of the 3 years there was over 1,000 participants in that, which showed that there was a real appetite for this kind of management. And in the high 80s, when they were shown a short mown verge or a long grassland like this, they preferred the long grassland. And another major element of the project was also we did an economic appraisal so that we could look at the cost-benefit analysis of this type of management. And we were able to show that not only was there a cost benefit, it certainly saved us a lot of money to manage the sites in this way, but there was also that increased value to the visitors that come, to the health and well-being, to our pollinator services as well. So there was a real financial benefit, but then there was also all these other benefits as well. Then you have such a diversity of different plant life, and even orchids. I can see about 6 common spotted orchids just sitting in a sort of a 2-metre square. And the buzz of the bees that are nectaring here is absolutely incredible. And as you walk through, the moths that you flush up, the butterflies you see. So it's not just, it is an agricultural practice, it's still being used for agriculture, but it's also highly beneficial now for our pollinators as well.
The landscape restoration of the estate started in 2007, and a decision was made in that time to actually manage this as a wildflower meadow. The cutting regime is really, really important. So we cut here around the first 2 weeks in September, and the main reason for that is that at that stage the majority of all of the seeds have set already. So it's on the ground or just in the sward. So when it's cut, the seeds are pushed into the ground and ready for the next year. By taking away all of that vegetation, then you're reducing the fertility of the soil, which makes it easier for native wildflowers and wild grasses to actually establish themselves. So that's sort of one of the keys is cut and remove, get rid of the biomass, reduce the fertility of the soil. A lot of the rest is really down to nature. Look, we've had a really exponential increase in pyramidal orchid. It's really brought to the fore the importance of these type of grasslands. These are semi-natural grasslands with a really diverse population of flora in them. There's not a lot of these left in the country, and I think the National Biodiversity Data Centre have really sort of upped people's awareness of the value of these places for biodiversity, for ecology, and I think that's given us the opportunity in the OPW to provide stable habitats over, a long period of time. Yeah, we've had really fantastic feedback from people. I think that the local people particularly have just embraced it as their little piece of heaven. The value of this and the beauty of it is being, more people are being exposed to that, so that's good to know.
We're in Milton Lodge Park Meadow, which is a long-flowering meadow. Previous to 2019, we had been cutting it about every 2 weeks. In 2019, we stopped cutting, decided to designate it as a long-flowering meadow in accordance with the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan, and it's flourishing. You have to make sure that the public know and are aware of what you're doing. So here in this meadow, we've cut the frame of the meadow to make it look like it's not an abandoned area, that it is managed, and we've cut paths along the desire lines, so to the nearby housing estate, to the routes that we know people take around the park, down to the river. We put up signage at the entrances to the park, but also along the edge of the meadow. In year one of this meadow, we actually had bee orchids appear, which were very unexpected. Absolutely delighted to have found them. This year, being year two, the bee orchids here in the meadow reappeared, but also on a second site on Milton Northern Relief Road, where the last count was 363 bee orchids and rising. A relief road, only 10 years old, had been frequently cut and had been designated in the Pollinator Plan to be a 6-week meadow, and during the gap of cutting, these bee orchids in June just flourished and appeared on the verges right next to the cycle track.
We're here at the wonderful barn in Leaksip. This year we're doing pilots and we're trying to see what would be the best way of cutting our grass going forward for environmental reasons and for maintenance reasons. So we've piloted on this site in particular the mowing of the edges to keep everywhere in a neat, tidy, presentable fashion. We've also got bi-monthly cuts in some areas in front of the wonderful barn, and the area behind me is kept as a meadow. Today we demonstrate a number of machines, for example the finger bar mower, the zero grazer, the flail mower, and we've also used a conditioning mower for cutting of hay, which will be baled shortly. Basically, a zero grazer is like a forage machine, but it's also got the mower in front. So it uses this mower to actually cut the grass, and then it's picked up and put into the harvester. The idea of the zero grazer is that it doesn't damage the grass, so the cows will eat it. And as you can see from the section just right here behind me, it literally cuts it down for a very low level, collects it at whatever length it is and brings it in. It's also something that's low impact on the ground. The zero grazer is very fast. Some of the grass that we are grazing this year we're going to give to the GIY Centre in Derrybeg in Selbridge, and the idea is that they're going to use it for composting. We're also harvesting here today bales of hay.
We're here in Little in Youghal, and you know, you can look around, it's buzzing, because I mean, whether through the lockdown that we've just experienced and it was let go or what, or it wasn't seen as an essential service, I mean, it's magnificent. And Little, because they're an All-Ireland Pollinator Plan business who are already part of it, it was an easy sell to try and get them to leave this as a meadow. And this is a success story that we've had. I'm a school teacher in a secondary school in Middleton, and some of the most amazing results that will never get documented are when kids, when you meet them on the corridor, start telling you about, I saw a bee the other day, do you know what it was? That is amazing. That evidence, where do you write that down? Where do you record it?
Look at all your sites that you are managing and look carefully at what could be very, very suitable to turn into a long-flowering meadow, a 6-week meadow, but then make it look like it's managed. Make sure you do a frame, make sure you edge it frequently, that it looks like this site is not abandoned, it is being taken care of, and of course put up your signage.
And that's the beauty of it. You know, you can move really easily from an area of shortly mown grass into a naturally regenerated meadow really easily. You just need to be patient, you need to manage it properly, and you need to let those flowers grow again. If it gets better year upon year, it's there for the long term. It's fantastic, looks fantastic, brilliant for biodiversity, and you know, what a legacy to leave for biodiversity and for people to enjoy.